Hello and thank you for joining us right here on Luntha Television. It's time for news and you're with me, Jacqueline Saidi. First, the headlines. Pope Francis calls Russia to renew Ukraine grain deal. MCP to conduct its convention next year. Pupil-teacher ratio in various schools in the country worries Parliamentary Committee on Education. And in other news, West African governments give Niger coup leaders a week to cede power. We have these and more stories. Stay with us. The Holy Father Pope Francis has made a direct call to Russia on Sunday to renew the deal that allowed Ukraine to export grain to countries in Africa, Asia and the Middle East. Speaking at the end of his weekly Angelus prayer and address, the Holy Father called for prayers for restoration of the distribution of grain through the Black Sea Initiative, appealing to the authorities of the Russia Federation so that millions who suffer hunger can be saved. We have more in this Catholic News Agency report being read by Tandiwe Nzumara.
The Kremlin announced on the 17th of July this year that the wartime grain deal would be suspended until the part of the Black Sea deal related to Russia is implemented. Russia has also bombed Ukraine's Black Sea ports since quitting the agreement. The move by Russia has sparked fears for even higher food prices and increased poverty in countries already suffering from hunger. Pope Francis also repeated on Sunday his regular request for prayers for Ukraine, asking that we do not cease to pray for the tormented Ukraine, where war destroys everything, even grain. He noted that this is a grave offense against God, for grain is his gift to feed humanity, and the cry of millions of starving brothers and sisters rises to heaven. In response to leaders' appeals to reinstate the grain deal, Russia's President Vladimir Putin said at an Africa summit he hosted from the 27th to 28th of July in St. Petersburg that Russia could deliver grain for free to 6 African countries, namely Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mali, Somalia, Central African Republic, and Eritrea, all allies of Russia apart from Somalia. Speaking to journalists in recent days, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres decried the breakdown in the Black Sea Initiative on grain shipments, as well as the bombardment of harbor installations and even deposits of grain.
The Malawi Congress Party has announced that it will hold its National Elective Convention in August next year. Secretary General for the ruling party, Esenhao Mukaka, has made the announcement at a press conference in Lilongwe today, saying it is both traditional and historical that the party holds the convention a year before the general election. According to Mukaka, the National Executive Committee made the resolution on 21st November last year. We have more in this report by Robert Edward.
The conference, which took place at the party's national headquarters in Lilongwe, was not clear on whether MCP will go solo in the 2025 general election, with its Secretary General Esenhao Mukaka saying the decision will be made later on whether the party will be in another electoral marriage. Mukaka told the news conference that National Executive Committee's decision to hold the convention in August next year is both traditional, historical, and consistent with the party's constitution.
And the National Executive Committee resolved on 21st November 2022 that the Paris Convention be held in August 2024 in keeping with the tradition and the history of Malawi Congress Party conventions, which are ordinarily held a year before general elections. And the resolution was also passed to align with the change in the electoral calendar as legislated by the Parliament of Malawi.
Actual dates for the convention will be announced later, and according to Nkaka, every person is free to contest at any position in the party, including that of the president. But should the MCB decide to go solo in 2025 general election and fail to amass 50% plus one as provided by the electoral laws, Malawians will be forced to dip their pockets again for a rerun, development that, according to political commentators, may be avoidable if parties deemed big will put down their egos. For Luntha, this is Robert Edward.
The Parliamentary Committee on Education, Science and Technology has urged the government to consider recruiting more teachers to address the alarming number of pupil-teacher ratio which is in the country. Presenting a report on field visits to selected primary and secondary schools in 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023 on behalf of the chairperson of the committee today in Parliament, Betha Ndebere, Member of Parliament for Balaga West, told the August House that their visit proved that the government should consider recruiting adequate teachers since the number is still high as far as the teacher-pupil ratio is concerned. She said the committee also recommends that the Ministry of Education should increase the amount of school improvement grant to 2 million per annum to primary schools with an enrollment of up to 1,000. Bridget Monoga was at Parliament.
The Parliamentary Committee on Education, Science and Technology monitored the implementation of school improvement grants, SIGI, availability of teaching and learning materials, implementation of COVID-19 measures and regulations, inspect construction works of teacher houses and appreciate low-cost classroom blocks in the 2021-2022 and 2022-2023 financial years. The committee carried out field visits to the selected primary and secondary schools, to which they conducted inspections and round-table meetings with the school authorities. Presenting the report on behalf of the committee's chairperson, Betha Ndewere said that the committee found out that there was a shortage of teachers in both primary and secondary schools and that the learner-teacher ratio was too high. She said the committee recommends recruitment of adequate teachers and allocation of more funds to the Ministry of Education if the country is to improve the education sector.
We visited a number of schools, and the findings were that a lot of primary schools are lacking classrooms, and also teacher-learner ratio is too high. You'd find out that one teacher is having more than 100 learners, and of which the recommended ratio is about 1 teacher to 60. So you would see that even to give a learner adequate attention is not possible. And also some of the teachers complained that they have stayed for a number of years without being promoted to the next grade.
Concurring with Ndewere was Member of Parliament for Cholo Central, who told the House that even the number of students in various classes across the country is worrisome.
I did indeed indicate an issue to do with the rapid population growth. The impact of rapid population growth we can all see. When you go into our primary or secondary schools, the recommended number of learners in one classroom block is between 40 and 60. But I can challenge you that no school has got such. Most of the schools have got above 100 learners in one classroom block. And that again puts pressure to a teacher who's going to teach and again give attention to all these children. And what we are saying is, if we really want an improvement to our education standards, one of the key things that we've got to be looking at is the population.
The committee has since expressed their commitment to take up the matter with the Ministry of Education. The government is here to respond on the recommendations. Bridget Mwanoka, for Luntha News.
Still on education, the Ministry of Education has issued a stern warning to government and private schools who are asking learners to go back to school for summer lessons barely days after schools closed on 21st July 2023. The ministry's spokesperson, Patsom Konya, has told us that the conduct is against the ministry's policy. He said this gives learners no room to rest after weeks of being in class, and it is a disadvantage to learners from vulnerable families whose parents or guardians cannot afford to pay for the summer lessons, among others. Bridget Monoka caught up with Nkonela.
The ministry is concerned that there are some schools encouraging learners to go back to school earlier than planned and requesting them to pay some money for summer term. This is not acceptable as a ministry. We would like to remind all that we regret this situation. Then our position is that this practice gives a lot of challenges. So any kind of action that does not conform with the ministry's position is deemed as wrong, and therefore it will be corrected using the same laws. Let me emphasize that our school calendar for 2023-2024 commences on September 11th, 2023, and closes on 26th July 2024. Any other institution must operate within this said calendar. We make sure that no school should operate against this calendar. That's both private and public institutions. Because as we have said, it promotes a number of disparities and inequalities amongst learners, which the ministry may not tolerate.
Remember, you're still watching news right here on Luntha television. Now let's have a recap of the headlines. Pope Francis calls Russia to renew Ukraine grain deal. MCP to conduct its convention next year. Pupil-teacher ratio in various schools in the country worries Parliamentary Committee on Education. And in other news, West African governments give Niger coup leaders a week to cede power. Moving forward, the Center for Democracy and Economic Development Initiatives, CDD, has implored Parliament to immediately suspend relevant standing orders and come up with an emergency maize bill. CDD Executive Director Sylvester Namiwa, through a press conference earlier today, has demanded the leader of the opposition, Honorable Bundani Nankunwa, to facilitate tabling of the maize bill. He said that government should immediately release the National Food Reserve Agency maize to all agricultural development and marketing corporation selling points. We have more on this report filed by Charity Chilanga.
Has cast fears of a worsening hunger situation amid reports that the country does not have enough maize, which is the staple food, whose price on the market is also on the rise. Addressing the media, CDD Executive Director Sylvester Namiwa said it is painful to note that on the 12 billion kwacha which Parliament approved for procurement of maize, the country still has too little in the reserves, which is posing as a threat on the sustainability of people amidst looming hunger. CDD has, however, given Parliament 7 days to deliberate and pass the bill, saying failure to do so will prompt them to camp at the Parliament building in Lilongwe from Monday, August 7, 2023, until the bill is passed, maize is made available and its price is reduced.
Government should immediately release the maize from its strategic grain reserves and flood the market. That will mean an instant reduction in maize prices. Secondly, survivors of Cyclone Freddy, the drought in Karonga, and the Adrapua deserve free maize from government. That said, it is a common sense that in Malawi the minimum wage is pegged at 50,000. Therefore, Malawians cannot afford a 50 kilogram bag of maize at 25,000. Government should revise down maize prices.
Commenting on the matter, agriculture expert Tamaninkono Mvula said bringing in a law is not ideal, as this may just complicate things, saying bringing in a law may not improve the supply of maize. He said that the best way is to find ways in which the country might increase the supply by increasing the importation of the grain and ensuring an additional production.
Well, I don't think that the best way forward to deal with the issues of hunger and the issues of prices will be coming up with a law. I think we need to look at the factors that has led to this state of affairs, and also try to look at the ways in which we can address them, but not necessarily bringing in a law, because when you're bringing in a law, it is going to complicate things. Because if you look at most of the issues that are related to the current state of affairs, there are issues of availability of the food itself, but also the market dynamics that are there. Because even if you bring in a law, it will not mean that the supply of maize is going to improve.
The fears also come amid calls to open ADMAC depots in a bid for the people to easily access the staple food. A 50-kilogram bag of maize is fetching between 30,000 kwacha and 35,000 kwacha in different parts of the country. Charity Chilanga, Luntha Television, Lilongwe.
The International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, ECRISAT, has encouraged farmers in the country to adapt to the production of crops which are resilient to climate shocks like millets, since they require minimal inputs for growth and display a remarkable ability to withstand diseases and pests. ECRISAT Africa Director Dr. Rebi Harawa has told us that there is a need for the country to develop high-yielding varieties of millets which are beneficial to smallholder farmers. She said as Malawi is set to participate in the upcoming India-Africa International Millet Conference, celebrating the International Year of Millets 2023 and promoting the world's emerging smart food, which will be held in Kenya in August, there is need to promote the cultivation, production and consumption of millets as a sustainable and nutritious smart food. Bridget Monoka with her report.
A pre-conference event for the India-Africa International Millet Conference, celebrating the International Year of Millets 2023 and promoting the world's emerging smart food, was held in Lilongwe on Thursday. The workshop welcomed the participation of diverse stakeholders, including producers, farmer associations, government bodies, among others, and was aimed at fostering comprehensive dialogue while promoting millets in Malawi and beyond. ECRISAT Africa Director Dr. Rebi Harawa stressed that crops like millets have proven to be more resilient to climate shocks than other cereals since they demand less water for producing. She said millets possess high nutritional value, making them an excellent choice as a healthy food for both humans and for feed in poultry and livestock farming.
We thought it necessary as ECRISAT, which is facilitating this conference, that we bring stakeholders in a number of African countries together ahead of the meeting where they can deliberate the status of millets, so that when we are going to the meeting in August, we have people that have knowledge in terms of where we are with millets. The most important thing to know that this year, yes, we will celebrate about the International Year of Millets, But we want to take this as an opportunity to launch this promotion of millets going forward.
In his remarks, the Indian High Commissioner to Malawi, Mr. S. Gopalakrishnan, said his government remains committed to supporting Malawi to realize its social and economic aspirations.
As a leader in millet cultivation, the Government of India is trying to promote millet through our South-South collaboration, and we are trying to share our experiences, expertise, technology to promote millets around the world. Millets, as the other speakers have spoken today, has a lot of advantages, but the main advantage of millets is a resilient crop.
From the Ministry of Agriculture, Director of Agriculture Research Services, Dr. Gracie Gaudzu, said that the government of Malawi is looking at various policies that are promoting various value chains, including millets, sorghum, and various grains.
As government, we are actually looking at diversifying our, production systems. And as mentioned already, millets actually are a good resilient crop, and we are actually promoting that as well, especially in areas where we have, climate, shocks like droughts and floods, like the southern part of the country.
The Malawi Stakeholders Workshop addressed several objectives, like assessing the current status of millet sector development in Africa and identifying challenges and opportunities for future growth. The International Year of Millets 2023 will be held on 30th and 31st August in Nairobi, Kenya, and Malawi will be participating. Bridget Manoka, Luntha News.
In international news, West African countries have imposed sanctions on Niger's new military leaders, threatening to use force if they fail to reinstate ousted President Mohamed Bazoum within a week after the latest coup in the Sahel region raised alarm on the continent. In the third coup in as many years to topple a leader in the Sahel, Niger's elected president and Western ally Bazoum has been held by the military since Wednesday. General Abdulrahman Tiani, the head of the powerful presidential guard, has declared himself leader. We have more details on this Al Jazeera News report being read by Tandiwe Mzumara.
Bazoum is one of a dwindling group of elected presidents and pro-Western leaders in the Sahel, where since 2020 an armed uprising has triggered coups in Mali and Burkina Faso. Former colonial ruler France and the European Union have suspended security cooperation and financial aid to Niger following the coup, while the United States warned that its aid could also be at stake. Several thousand demonstrators gathered in Niger's capital, Niamey, to demand the departure of French military troops from the country. They also want an end to other foreign interference after last week's coup that has brought a military junta to power. In a diplomatic communique, Paris has said it supports the economic and financial sanctions decided in support of these demands and for an end to the unacceptable violence against its embassy seen on Sunday. But the sentiment on the streets is decidedly anti-West, prompting concerns that Niger could pivot towards Russia. In Niamey, some of the protesters outside the French embassy chanted "Long live Russia, long live Putin, and down with France." Neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso, which have both experienced army takeovers, both moved closer to Russia after their own coups.
That also concludes our news today, but before we go, let's have another look at the headlines. Pope Francis calls Russia to renew Ukraine grain deal. MCP to conduct its convention next year. Pupil-teacher ratio in various schools in the country worries Parliamentary Committee on Education. And in other news, West African governments give Niger coup leaders a week to cede power. My name is Jacqueline Saidi. Thank you very much for watching Luntha Television and stay safe.